to contemplate how it's so important what you say and how you say it and how you word it. The Zohar speaks of, machshava, dibur, maaseh, thought, speech, action, right? And that continuum is so important to be mindful, to be caring, to be loving with the words that you say, how harmful they can be, how destructive they can be, how negative they can be.
So just in our last few minutes, there was a question that came up last week. Someone had asked me and wanted me to bring it up, which is, given all your time you've spent studying the Zohar and Kabbalah, are there any other mystical traditions that you would compare Kabbalah to, that you found resonant? Is Kabbalah unique? Is it borrowing from other traditions? Is it talking to other traditions? Is it informing or being informed by other traditions?
Yeah, I mean, one of the fascinating thing about mysticism is how you find parallels with other teachings, right? If you find the Zohar says something, and then some Buddhist teacher, also in the 13th century, Dogen, one of the great masters of Zen, is a contemporary with Moses de Leon, with the composer of the Zohar, both in the 13th century. And it's very exciting, it's very uplifting to find a parallel in another text. You find it in Buddhist texts, and Sufi texts, and Christian texts, and Hindu texts, because mystics are, when you come down to it, finally discovering the same truth, which is that I am part of something greater, right? Going beyond the normal confines of ego consciousness. That's really what mysticism is about. Building a bridge or discovering the connection between your own limited ego and the unnameable, the infinite, God, divine, energy, whatever you're going to call it. Einstein says this, that the goal of religion is to realize that we're part of the cosmos. And that journey you see in so many traditions. So to me, wherever I find the parallel, I find it exciting. Sometimes I point out parallels in the notes in this edition to Rumi or to Buddhist teachers. Jesus is very important source. It's very important for Jews to appreciate the wisdom of Jesus, not to worship Jesus, not to become a Jew for Jesus, but to realize that Jesus was a Jewish teacher and he is a Jewish mystic. So that's a mysticism that's within Judaism and yet developing into independent tradition. Of course, the bloody history of Jewish-Christian relations makes it very difficult to appreciate Jesus, but that's important too. So I wouldn't say any one particular faith. There's certain very strong parallels between the Buddhist emphasis on the present, on what's right here, on this. But you find a lot in Buddhism about thusness, suchness, and Kabbalah gives the word this. That journey is Shekhinah is this. Shekhinah is divine presence right here.
Are there any other places in the Zohar where dreams are discussed, or is this it? Did you just
This is the most extensive discussion in the Zohar on dreams. I'll recommend a book, Tishby, Tishby, Isaiah Tishby, has a book called Wisdom of the Zohar. It's 3 volumes, but it's in paperback. That's the best place to turn if you want to know what does the Zohar say about X, because he does it by subject. And he probably refers to some other passages, but from what I recall, this is the most complete, and it's not that complete, just some intriguing hints, but it's fascinating how the Zohar draws on the Midrash and then moves into Kabbalah and comes down to something very human at the end, that relationship between Joseph and his brothers, and how the brothers seal their fate by spitting out the negative meaning of that dream.
I don't know if there's any other thing. There's always lots of stuff we could cover in very limited time. So just from your perspective, do you believe that Kitover wrote the whole Zohar? In other words, is it one author or is it multiple authors?
Yeah, I should say it's not Kitover. Moses Kitover was a great prolific Kabbalist, but the Moses we're talking about is Moses de Leon.
Sorry, I meant de Leon. Yes.
Yeah, in the 13th century, Moses de Leon, and Kitover was great colleague of Isaac Luria in the next creative period of Kabbalah in Sfat and Safed. I think Moses de Leon wrote the bulk of the Zohar's commentary on the Torah. I would guess, 70% of the Zohar's commentary on the Torah. But it's hard to know. I don't know if we'll ever know. The clearest proof that he is the author, the main author, is to compare his Hebrew writings with the Zohar. Moses de Leon never admitted that he wrote the Zohar, but he writes many books in Hebrew where he says, I, Moses de Leon, am writing this book in the city of Guadalajara, Spain, that is, not Mexico, in Guadalajara, in the year, he gives the place, he gives the title, and he writes books of Kabbalah. They're not as beautiful as the Zohar, they're not as poetic, but you can often tell that it's the same person. You can sometimes tell it's the same person because he'll refer to the Zohar in his Hebrew writings, and he'll refer to it in such a playful way. It seems that he's alluding to his own masterpiece that he never comes out and says he wrote.
Maybe last question. Brian asks, is it possible to study the Zohar on your own? So it's a question I ask because today studying with you is an example of why it's so hard to study the Zohar on your own, because you are actually taking us through your notes, but you're explaining the notes, and you are a master guide. So I assume someone could open up the Zohar, but on their own, I would find it to be very challenging without having someone to at least interact with to try to understand, if not a master teacher. But do you have any thoughts about, that's why you have a whole class on Zohar, is to help people. But
right.
Anyway,
what we do in the class is pretty much what we did today, and move a little more slowly, and we spend more time. We look at parallels and stuff. But I would say, I wrote the commentary this way. You see how dense and extensive the commentary is. I wrote the commentary this way so that people could approach it on their own. I think if you move very slowly and carefully, if you have a Bible next to you, if you've studied some Bible, you can't make sense of the Zohar without some knowledge of the Bible. Okay, now let me say this. It's often said in traditional circles, you shouldn't open the Zohar until you've mastered not only the Bible, but the Talmud. You should study the whole Talmud, and maybe Midrash, and maybe Halakha, and you should study everything before you even venture into the Zohar. That's often been the traditional approach. My sense is that, if we wait for people to do that, a tiny fraction of the Jewish population or the world population will ever get to the Zohar. So I wrote the commentary so that people could approach it if you're very careful, if you're very patient, if you can work slowly with the Bible next to you, looking up occasionally things in the Talmud. But it certainly helps to study with someone, with a teacher, and I can recommend my class highly. But there are other ways to do it. You can do it on your own. You can do it with a friend. You can do it with another teacher. There's so much of the Zohar is through dialogue. It's rabbis wandering on the road and exchanging secrets of Torah. So it helps a lot to study with someone. And some of the people in our course do chavruta, do companion study. To study with someone and in a class is tremendous.
Robin, I'm reading your comments. It's very funny because, really it's about relaxation, I think. And those rooms want to essentially, the whole thing is about capturing crash out. Like, that's the only value content, and like inducing crash out. It's basically the prank call show, but these people don't retransport that content to the other. Exactly. Like, they're actually the Walking Dead. That's why I say this is hell for zombies. So just have compassion on these people. They're trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out what I'm actually listening to, in my opinion. So I know it's so great to listen to how horrible they are, but the problem is, it's like, I feel like you have to do something different every single day. Good, record it. Because what you're really doing is like creating a South Park episode. But the point is, who watches South Park every single day? The people in these rooms, and maybe me and you. But like, basically, it's like, I had a lot to drink last night. So what I'm saying is, you value your health and your time more and more and more, because time is so limited. And to let those people echo inside of your brain is like deciding to drive a truck off of a cliff. I am complete.
But I know a good number of people who've joined the class said, I bought your book, I bought volume 1, I bought the first 5 volumes, I bought all 12 volumes, and I started reading it, and I didn't get it anywhere, so I want to do a class. So some people really need the class, and I think many people benefit from the class, but some people, I think, can begin on their own. If the class is too expensive for you, then email me and we will work it out. The cost is not a barrier, and there are scholarship funds available.
Thank you. So I want to wish you all great dreams tonight, and a warning: don't tell your dreams to anybody you don't trust, I guess.
Right.
Thank you for taking us into this part of the Zohar today, and being a master guide for all of us. It's really a treat to have you as our teacher. Thank you all in the audience and participants as well for your great insights. And I will follow up this program with sending out the handouts again, as well as the information about joining Professor Matt's class and some other materials that may be of interest to all of you. Looking forward to having you back next week for the final in this 3-part series. And I guess the great thing is we could do 3-part series